fourth form to ask for a roll call of people in attendance?
Yeah, either the person who's going to run the meeting should designate who is actually in attendance and who's absent, or you do a roll call. And
No, I mean, who's tuning in from
there
remotely?
isn't anybody at the moment. It's just you
Oh,
guys.
okay.
So I wasn't able to print it out, but I have a thing that Larry Anderson sent me, quite a lengthy document about Secana Point, Lloyd Beach.
Did he send it to you just personally, or can we consider it a correspondence to the beach commission?
I think because I'm on that ad hoc committee, the representative, but I guess I need to forward it to everybody.
Yeah, you have another meeting, what, December 8th?
Yes,
I think, so you might as well forward it and take that up then.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start recording, and you can do whatever you need to do.
It being 7 o'clock, we're going to call the meeting of the Beach Commission to order. Present myself, Joe Miato,
Michael Folcarelli.
Mike, you take the microphone.
Michael Folcarelli.
Don Maderas?
Absent would be Ryan and Patrick Canay.
all right. Do we have a motion regarding the brief minutes from the previous meeting?
Yeah, Michael Folcarelli, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from October 27th.
Don Maderas, second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from the previous meeting of November,
October
Yeah,
27.
October 27th. All in favor?
Michael Folcarelli, aye.
Don Maderas, aye.
Joe Miato, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is bills. Sorry, my glasses are fogging up the screen. Okay,
Just state into the microphone that there's no bills.
yeah, no bills to be dealt with at this meeting. We need to discuss drafting an RFP for the development of a strategic plan for the maintenance, repair, and improvements to the town beaches. So Donnie, at the last meeting, a few things came up, but we tabled them in your absence, so it's all yours.
Okay, so I think I missed the last couple of meetings, but I believe the commission designated Mike Folcarelli and myself to look into, preparing an RFP, discussing it. We did meet, we talked about, identified the various beaches and items that we think should be included. I think just to take a step back, overall, what I think, and this is my understanding, but I think discussion would be very helpful in formulating things from here on. We want to basically have a consultant review the various beaches in terms of various items that we think are pertinent to those certain beaches. Not every beach is the same or would have the same objectives, issues, constraints, goals. So Mike and I met and we talked about, we made a list of the different beaches and different things that we thought would be.
Can you go over that list, Donnie,
would be
of
worthy.
which beaches that
Yeah.
you were referring to, for
So
the record?
So the beaches that we discussed were South Shore Beach, Townway, Taylor's Lane, the beach at the harbor, and Lloyd's Beach. And each beach, as you know, is unique and character and issues and values and potential. So we thought that if we, as a commission, can agree to a basic framework, then we can give consultants who would be bidding on the RFP guidance as to what it is that we're looking for. That means a lot of various particular issues that could be looked at, investigated, reported on.
It would, I guess it would seem that, have you identified a consultant or consultants that you would reach out to?
No, we haven't. I think the way I thought it would go in my own mind was we would, once the commission's comfortable with what our objectives are, we would draft the RFP, advertise it, and then, you know, be a public bid, and we would then have a either a pre-bid or you know, preliminary bid meeting with consultants that are interested in seeking the job, that we could then drill a little deeper in terms of getting them to have a good understanding of what it is we're looking for.
So the objective would be develop a comprehensive plan of how the beaches, of those beaches, could be better used by the town population.
I think the pre-bid conference would be critical for us as well as them, to help us formulate and fine tune exactly what we're looking for as well. And then we can issue a document following that pre-bid conference to all the potential bidders, clarifying whatever changes or fine tunings that were made to the original request. Because I think they may come up with things, questions that will clarify and help us.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think we do need to start off, though. I think the commission needs to start with a basic framework. Otherwise, there's no, there's no focus or direction. But yes, I'm hoping, I think when we engage the consultants, their questions, like you said, will help inform us as to narrow down better our objectives and things we haven't thought of, or, you know, that sort of thing. So you know, Mike, jump in. In my mind, I think what we need to do is first, as a commission, is identify what our objectives are, our wish list, so to speak. Then if we can put it in writing in the form of an RFP, and the commission's happy with it, then we can advertise it, and then we can kind of then launch the process.
Do you think we should go through that exercise as the whole group, or do you think that you guys can maybe draft something rough and then, you know, instead of kind of just kicking stuff around at the full meeting?
We can. Mike and I actually met last weekend, and we started, we did some brainstorming, we made up a list. If in interest of saving time, it sounds like a good idea. Mike and I could go back and put the pen to paper now and present something to the commission at the next meeting.
I think that's a good idea. Jimmy, do you have any input on that? Or?
I think there's just basically two basic stages that we're looking at: maintaining what we've got and best usages of that in the future.
Because the next meeting, December 8th, is that correct, Cindy? That's the last meeting that we have for this year.
Yep.
Yeah. So after the first of the year, I mean, we can meet as needed, I guess. We can figure out the dates at some point after the holiday. And obviously, we're not going to be meeting as regularly, but we can certainly meet to go over these. So it'd be good to have that at the next meeting, and maybe all the members will be present and we can go over it.
That sounds good. I think at the next meeting, we rather than wait till after the holiday, though, Joe, I think we would want to schedule the next meeting at the next meeting.
Sure.
The first in January, we'd schedule that at our December 8th meeting, just so we kind of keep stay on track.
By the Open Meetings Act, you have to post an annual calendar of what your anticipated regular meetings will be for the calendar year coming up. So you should set those dates of what you're anticipating in meeting in 2021 and state those for the record so they can be posted.
Okay.
And when does that have to be in, Carol?
It's supposed to be the month of January.
Okay.
Well, a lot of people do it in December,
I was
just
just
so
going to
it's,
say, we can do it at the next meeting.
yeah,
Okay.
if you do it at the next meeting, we
Grab
can
a
post right
calendar
away.
and go through it
Sounds good.
and put like, at least tentative dates anyway, you know, most of the base ones, if we need to add something, we can
We can always
add it.
add,
Okay.
right.
But at that point, with Jimmy's help, in terms of payroll and stuff.
Summer's dates will be those centers.
Right, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, if we have all those dates to start with, tied into the payroll, and then we can add in the few winter meetings that we need to do.
Sounds good. And I think in terms of Mike and I drafting preliminary language for the next meeting, I think we will want to meet with Jim before that, because there are some things that I think we need input and advice from Jim on certain aspects. Just in the interest of saving time, if we can meet with you, Jim, before,
He's not on the commission, so it's okay.
so there's no issue with the open meeting. Okay, good.
Also, I don't know if anybody, this is like a follow-up from the last meeting, really, it should have been on the agenda, but I don't think it's gonna happen anyway right now, because Billy's not here. But is anybody aware whether Billy had gotten the quotes and so forth for the work from the carpenter? No? All right, can you put that on the agenda for the next meeting? And anything that's like carried over from the previous meeting, that should be on the agenda for the upcoming meeting. So that was just, the other item that was in the minutes was to discuss the RFP, which we just did. Anything new, Donnie, any more communications from the Nature Conservancy or the, what do you call that, coastal,
CRMC.
CRMC, Coastal Resources?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything from Nature Conservancy, which makes you want to dial back the clock here and think about right after the summer, starting in September, they were supposed to get together with us to review the goose wing management
Yeah, we
plan.
kept going over with them and they kept wanting to push off until the fall.
Correct.
Now it's fall and almost
Now
winter.
it's- But we haven't heard a word, so I think we should probably designate a member of the commission to directly reach out to them and, or.
Why don't we
even-
have Cindy
even-
send a letter and see if they can attend the next meeting?
Well, you know what? That's not a bad idea, but, and I didn't express my idea succinctly. What I think we should do is I think we should designate a member of this commission to review the maintenance plan that exists and report back to the commission. I think a member of the commission and the beach manager should go through the existing plan. In other words, we should start without TNC because they're not showing up. Let's get started, then we'll reach out to TNC and see if they'll come in, because right now I think we need to understand that maintenance plan a little bit better and probably start discussing what we think about it. I mean, TNC agreed it needs updates. Why do we need to wait for them? Why don't we start the process? And that might draw them to the table. Otherwise, you know, they haven't shown up yet. So
Yeah.
I think we ought to try to move that forward a little bit to get them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, since you're going to be meeting with Jimmy to talk about the other thing, do you want to combine that? And,
Actually, Joe, I was hoping you would take
I
that
can.
over. Seriously, I was
No, that's
going to
fine.
ask if you and Jim could at least do that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't sound like a big task, but at least we should get something moving.
Get in touch with me, Jimmy, and whenever you want to get together, we can get together. All right?
And I think it's a good idea, maybe reverse the role, but let's send them a copy of
Yeah.
the maintenance agreement and the management agreement.
For us to draft it instead of them drafting it.
Mhm.
All right, so we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. That's the Nature Conservancy. What about CRMC?
So to back
I
up
think
a
there was
bit,
some communication, so this can
there
come in as
was,
a
yeah,
communication.
we received a letter November 5th from CRMC. Prior to that, as I said, I missed a couple of meetings, so we breached the creek in third week in October. Big success. We reached out to Phil Edwards. I sent emails out today. I had to take a break after that for a few weeks, so I haven't responded to emails or forwarded them. But Phil Edwards and his team at DEM, they came back as they typically do after the breach, and they sampled the results by, probably with nets, counting fish and other things that, they would do. And Phil said it was both creeks was a success. So that was a good thing. It's good to hear.
They've since kind of plugged up. I mean, it hadn't been that much rain.
And that happens.
Not plugged up so much, but
At the mouth.
if a little more rain came, the high tides are not really
That's right.
getting in there.
That's right. The waves kind of wash
Yeah,
up
pushed up
at the
sand.
mouth. But I've been going down there and looking at it. The channel is still,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still fine. It's
Still
still
there.
open. It's still
Yeah.
there. So a good storm or a good rain and it's going to keep working. So that went really well. Chris Wilkie did a great job, as you
Yeah.
know, doing that work. I did receive an email from Dave Reese and from Jeff Willis at CRMC. Actually, I got it the day, I think the morning that we did breach the creek, and it was interesting. It was, you're all set to breach the creek because we submitted a plan explaining how we want to work with DEM and with Wilkie and a procedure, a plan for
They
doing
were
the
going to
work.
do Second Creek first.
Correct.
So that
That's
they can
exactly
get back
right.
over.
That's exactly right. So but on the morning of the planned work, I got an email saying you're all set to go. You just need authorization from TNC to do it. So I sent him back an email saying what we've been saying since May. The town does not need authorization from TNC, the private landowner, to breach the creek. Based on the response, it didn't go over very well. So we need to respond back to them on that note. And so that segues into this November 5th letter, which seems to have been born out of that
Do you want to summarize
issue.
that?
I can't really summarize it, Joe. I haven't poured over the letter, but CRMC, well, to summarize, they're threatening enforcement action for a few different issues. And it's unfortunate that they need to kind of take that position, so we need to respond to them. So,
They conduced a site visit at the town beach. I'm not sure what that means.
oh geez, I didn't even see that, yeah.
All right, Jimmy and I talked about this offline a bit. And I think that we need to kind of put on the brakes here a bit, because they're saying that we removed the temporary buffer zone markers where there's no parking for the 50-foot buffer zone. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Jimmy, I don't know if you know. I mean, we had
I think that's all
the ropes there.
In the beginning, when they first came through and they saw the camper stones along the creek, and they didn't want any parking over there within 50 feet of the creek. We put up the normal stanchions and the line across and just didn't allow any parking there.
But that wasn't done out of a directive from them.
No.
It wasn't done, there's no written requirement for us to have a buffer 50 feet from the creek.
There is a 50-foot buffer from the creek imposed by CRMC. When CRMC came in February to review our permit request for elevating the entrance to the beach and the annual, renewal of the 10-year annual maintenance permit, they did a site inspection and they sent a letter or an email basically saying, we noticed that you have camper bumpers down along the creek, the edge of the creek, that's in the 50-foot buffer zone. And this commission voted at the next meeting to eliminate those 10 or 12 camper spots along the creek.
Which we did, yep.
Which we did, thanks for nothing, but that's what we did. So that's what I think that's related to, but they're talking about the required buffer zone markers. This is news to me.
That wasn't really done as we always put those ropes up for where the campers are.
Correct.
That wasn't done as a, no-fly zone.
That was done out of the COVID this year to control the parking lot.
Yeah, again, it fit into what they wanted, but then those lines go up every year no matter what. The only difference this year is we didn't allow any campers behind them.
Correct.
So now they're concerned that now, even though the beach is closed, and Jimmy and I talked about going down there and putting them up, but
No, absolutely
I don't know
not.
if we want to do that,
No,
because
it
then that
makes
might
no
set a
sense.
precedent that they're telling us that we need to be doing this year round, which we never did.
Correct. That makes no sense to do that.
So, given that we've received this communication, we can talk about this, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think we need to move a little bit of caution in terms of we could end up inheriting something if we set the precedent and start saying, okay, this is a buffer zone and so forth,
Correct.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
So I don't know what Donnie, you're the one that usually communicates with these people. What do you suggest as a next step? Do
Well-
we respond to this?
Yeah, no, I think we should respond because they're threatening enforcement action and they're given a deadline, so we definitely should respond. Regarding the buffer zone and the markers, my personal opinion is there is no buffer zone until they correct the mess they made in the land evidence records. This is directly related to that. And I think we've patiently since May have been saying, hey, you guys did a power play before the opening bell even rang. And ever since then, we're saying, hey, wait a minute. And it's fallen on deaf ears, although the deaf ears have been getting aggravated as it goes along to the point that now they're being a bully. I think we just got to tell them, look, you either come to the table, discuss it and fix it, or at least show us why what you did is proper. Until then, I think we just need to tell them there is no buffer zone.
Now, what about on the second page, the first paragraph there? What is this information? They're saying that they waited 6 months for one bit of information and 5 months for some other information.
Yeah, they're a little foggy there, I think. So this was written by Jeff Willis, the executive director. I'm wondering if he might have summarized or, because it's not.
Does the left hand not know what the right hand's doing?
Well, I mean, the
over there, or-
substance is there, but some of the specific statements are not really accurate. For example, the second paragraph, as the spring-summer proceeded, it came to the staff's attention an entry gate was installed at the beach. Staff requested information via email to Mr. Maderas regarding the gate that was installed on June 22nd and 23rd. A letter dated June 26th stated that the gate was out of jurisdiction. That was our response. And from that response letter, on our agenda, every meeting was the gate issue until finally we took it off the agenda because we never got a response from CRMC, and we concluded they were happy with the initial response. Now here they are saying that they sent a follow-up response and it was never responded to. We need to ask them where that is and ask them to send it and to please give us a couple of weeks to respond to whatever their response was.
So here they're saying that they contacted us on multiple occasions, requesting information, but it seems more like we were waiting for a response from them, wasn't it?
That's correct.
So,
That's correct.
And maybe it's because this Jeff Willis isn't privy to what other people are saying there, or I don't know if
Who
these other
knows?
people that
I
are
mean,
copied,
we
you're
don't know.
copied, and then 2 other people from enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to write back to them in response to this and clarify that, we're waiting for them and
Mm-hmm.
we're not aware of something that we need to, What is this stormwater information that they're asking for?
So the stormwater, that's on me, that when we submitted our permit renewal in
December of last year.
December of 2019, they asked us, they came down in February at our request, and they said they wanted stormwater. However, following that, I got
They're not talking about a SWIP, are they?
No, they're talking about at the entrance of the beach, how we're gonna manage the stormwater that comes from off-site. It comes down South Shore Road onto the beach. And to be honest with you, the email that I got had this sarcastic tone that said, and don't think you're gonna just let the stormwater go in the parking lot. And I just said, you know what, I don't have time for this nonsense. What are they talking about? This is off-site stormwater. We didn't create it. We can't control it. It's always been there. We haven't increased it. It's from the pavement coming down South Shore Road. It's just, so I just left it. And I just said, I'm not going to deal with this because that's just a ridiculous position. However, now they put a 30-day deadline. I will respond to it. And I will provide the stormwater calcs and an explanation that this is off-site stormwater. It's our problem, but we don't have to fix it. And we don't have to mitigate it. And we don't have to reduce it or treat it because we don't. And it's too bad if they don't like it because there's
We
not
don't
much
have
that can
any
be done.
impermeable surface at all on the beach,
Well, we do. At the entrance, we have the pavement.
just at the entrance there, but I mean, it's
Correct.
not like we have a whole impermeable parking lot that we have to
Correct.
have a stormwater plan.
Correct. So just to refresh, what we proposed was to elevate the grade by a foot right at the entrance to the beach to mitigate the flooding from South Shore Road. And we would do that, we would overlay we would raise the grade and do a pavement overlay over the existing pavement. We're not increasing impervious. And the response was, don't think you're gonna put stormwater in the parking lot. And it's like, well, what are we gonna do? Launch it into outer space? Like, so
Yeah, why don't we,
it was my problem. I just had trouble with that response. So.
Yeah, all right, so you're gonna write back to them, and maybe if they want to come to a meeting, sometimes these things get more contentious because they're by letters and by emails and stuff like that, as opposed to face. If they could come to our meeting, and if they want to discuss it that way, it seems to me that would be better. Or if they don't want to come because
We can
whatever, they're
ask.
state employees.
You can ask, I don't think it's their procedure. Personally, I don't have time to be going down to meetings in Wakefield, but I had to pull teeth from them to get them out there in February because they wanted the whole permit issued and reviewed before they come out to even talk to us. But they
Well,
did come out.
And if they want to meet at the beach at any time, like during the day, like in the next month or so, I'd be happy to go down there and meet with them. And I just think sometimes face to face, they're going to be a little more reluctant to take this controversial tone.
Okay, but I'll include that in the response. Does the commission want to review the response before I send it, or how do you want to do it? I have no
I think in the
problem with
interest of
people-
time that we, maybe Mike, if you want to make a motion, we can give you the power to act on that. You know about the technical details about it, and you can communicate what our feelings are.
So, Mike Booker, so I'll make a motion that we ask Don Maderas to respond to the request for stormwater management from CRMC.
I'll second that, Joe Miato. All in favor?
Mike Booker, aye.
Don Maderas, aye.
Joe Miato, aye. Motion passes unanimously.
So, we still have not been granted our 10-year maintenance permit.
Correct.
And has Goosewind been, to your knowledge, has Goosewind been issued a 10-year maintenance permit?
Goosewing got issued their 10-year renewal of their 10-year permit, which they, in their permit request, they formally added the breaching of Tuna Fish Creek, as we know. TNC's 10-year permit expired in 2019. They didn't renew it. In March or April of 2020,
Excuse me,
this
Donnie,
year,
when you say they didn't renew it, do you mean
TNC
didn't? Or the-
TNC let their 10-year permit expire. And then they approached CR, and this is all in an email chain between John Berg and Dave Reese, which I think I shared with the commission.
Yes, yep.
So TNC let their permit expire in 2019. In early spring of 2020, TNC reached out to CRMC to renew the permit. CRMC responded, you can't renew the permit because it expired. But then after this go-between of emails, somehow TNC decided that they could renew the permit. And they also granted them, as you know, the right to breach.
Sorry, do you mean
Tunipers.
CRMC decided that they could renew it?
After saying they couldn't because it expired, somehow all of a sudden they got a renewal in 2020 for a 10-year permit, which is fine. None of that, the only part of that aggravates me is that TNC and CRMC did a power play to try to steal the creek away, the breaching of the creek, and that's not okay.
Do you
And
think
they
that
did
was
that.
intentional?
Wait a minute, let me finish. Sorry, don't mean to be.
No, it's all right, go
rude.
ahead.
I'm just talked up here. In December of 2019, this commission, when we filed for the renewal of the 10-year permit, we included breaching First Creek, which CRMC told us to do. In the last few years, when every time we breached the creek, it was a hustle for them to scramble and get us a permit in time for the machinery that was already scheduled to be there. So they said, why don't you just include it in your next 10-year parking lot permit? We did that in December, okay? And then we never heard anything from them. So then in March, we asked them, what's this, they responded to the elevating the parking lot, saying you need to do stormwater, no response on the creek part of the permit. So we asked them, what's the story with the creek permit? Zero, not even, we don't know, we don't care, we're not gonna talk to you, zero. Okay, and while that's going on, and we asked them several times, no response. This is a state agency that we filed a permit with, and they would not even respond to questions about that permit. At that time, while that was going on, behind closed doors, TNC and CRMC finagled it, and TNC got the creek permit and recorded it in the land evidence records. Okay, it's all just pretty poor form. That's not right. And I've been fighting against it ever since, because TNC did the right thing. When we brought it to their attention, they requested CRMC rescind the permit. CRMC told them, we don't want to do it. CRMC has no right to take property rights from the town or from any landowner and give them to another landowner just because it's expedient, desirable, or they like the other people better. They have no right to do that, and they can't do that, and we're not going to let them do that. Shall I go on? Because I'm really getting going here.
So Donnie, it sounds to me now that you're saying more that it's CRMC that was trying to do that and not TNC, intentionally trying to take that. Like, why?
Well,
because the second part of my question is, what's their objective? Why would they want to do that?
I think CRMC would be much happier if the beach was controlled by the Nature Conservancy and not the Beach Commission, including the breaching of the creek. So I see it as the eroding of the town's rights in that beach. And it's starting with giving the breaching of the creek, the rights to breach the creek away. And it's just going to continue on from there. Here's the buffer zone. Here's, what's next year's laundry list going to be? They got to be stopped because it's wrong. We've worked with CRMC, we've worked with TNC in the past, and it's been fine. But TNC, I don't know. So initially, and this is all just by the emails, TNC said we want to add formally add breaching First Creek to our permit when we renew it. They had no right to do that. CRMC said, okay, fine, we're gonna give it to you. And they did, and they recorded it in the land evidence records. We brought it to TNC's attention. We told them they need to request that the permit be rescinded, and TNC said, okay. They didn't really say that they agreed with us. They basically said, well, if you think we did something wrong, okay, we'll fix it. We'll ask CRMC to fix it. And they did, verbally and even in writing. However, CRMC then decided that they don't really care if the applicant wants their permit rescinded. They're not going to rescind the permit. So it started out with TNC and CRMC, but now TNC's taking a back seat because CRMC's doing all the dirty work, right? TNC doesn't want the publicity of this situation coming out. So they're happy to just sit back and let CRMC be the bad guy.
But do you think that TNC really wants that to be the case?
Wants what to be the
They want to control
case?
First Creek? And they're letting CRMC be the bad guy and
I think,
front man on.
I think, so again, if you look at the way this worked, we filed in December, CRMC told us in the past, we're tired of these last minute breach permits. We want you to make it part of your 10-year maintenance permit. That's what CRMC told us to do. Then we do that, and all of a sudden, they don't want to talk to us, they don't tell us anything, and they give the permit out to the next guy without us even knowing about it. So I don't know who did what or why, but why didn't CRMC tell us, you know what, after reviewing this, we think that it would be better in the hands of the Nature Conservancy? No, they didn't even have the courage or the respect or whatever. Not that I'm looking for respect, that doesn't really enter into my playbook, but CRMC as a state agency has a duty to an applicant, and they were derelict in their duty to the Beach Commission, and just only if nothing more than informing us as to the status of how that review was proceeding.
All right, well, I think that you're going to respond. I would just say from the commission's perspective that the response be a sort of not conciliatory, not necessarily agreeing with them, but let's try to, I think, come to an understanding here so everybody's on the same page. And I hate that we can't just be face to face on a lot of this stuff, but it's a lot easier for people to be brave and send nasty letters around, you know?
So I know that the request was made, but has it been changed in the land evidence records?
No, I don't think so, not to my knowledge.
And is it only CRMC that can change it in the land evidence records, or can it be changed in the land evidence records by another party than CRMC?
I don't see how that's valid. I don't see how
Well, no, it's
CRMC
very
can
valid.
convey rights to property from one party to another.
Well, it happened, so it has been done. It's the process of undoing that is important. So I'm not sure who can make that request to undo what was done.
My concern is that since CRMC currently has not rescinded that or rescinded that section of the permit, and that was put on record quite a while ago, I don't know what statute of limitations you have to have appealed that as a property owner and the abutter to the property. So you may need legal advice as to what you should have done and what you can still possibly do now, because you might have needed to file something on record immediately, recognizing that that was put on record and disputing it immediately. It's been months now since that was put on record, so I don't know where you stand legally, but you might want to look into that.
It seems like we should bring this to the attention, based on what you're saying, Carol, to Dick Humphrey, because it's the town's property. It's not our property.
You know what?
We're just the beach commission.
I totally respect what you're saying, Carol. However, let's, what do they say? Possession is 9/10 of the law. Look what happened. TNC got the permit. However, we breached the creek. Okay, TNC got the permit, but we breached the creek. We told TNC, you're not breaching it, we're doing it, and we did it.
Right,
Based on the land evidence records, I know TNC, since all the way back when I first started here, has always said that they own part of the parking. It's never come to a head before. There's been some arguments back and forth about where their property ends and the town property begins. They had at one point a large stone thrown down and replaced by marbles, and that was the end of the property. But then they said something about, there is something in the land evidence records that there's like 70 feet into the parking lot that belong to them, which, again, I don't think that's ever been really settled out.
Yeah, that area has been in dispute, so,
Yeah, and
but your theory that you have possession and you did the breaching is not going to hold up in court, I don't believe, because it's what's in the land evidence records that matters. So that has been recorded, and unless there's some dispute that gets resolved, that just continues to put another cloud on the title.
So then so an affidavit would not be the proper thing, but there are different documents that can be filed in the land evidence records.
There are plenty of documents that can be filed. An affidavit can be filed, but whether or not that is the correct legal action to correct this, I would say no for it won't correct it 100%. It only muddies the water a little bit more. Technically, in order to get this solved, if CRMC is not willing to undo what they did, you have to go to court. I know you don't want to do something like that, but, maybe you need something from the solicitor's office detailing the town's rights, which they have huge files on down there. And maybe a simple letter like that will get somebody to, okay, all right, we agree with you and correct the record.
I don't think there's any downside to getting the solicitor, to getting his advice. I mean, none of us are lawyers. We don't know the implications of something we may say or do. And, we don't usually have to go to that extreme on the beach commission.
Right.
But I think it would be advisable. I don't see a downside to it.
No, I don't see a downside to it. What I was going to say when Carol, we were talking about the statute of limitations, we inadvertently found out that the land evidence records were changed. We weren't informed that they were changed. Is that correct, Donnie?
We were informed by the email chain after it was done. John Berg sent in the whole email chain, and the last part of it was, and we recorded the permit.
That was probably June.
That was maybe May. I'm thinking it was May. I think it might even have been April. And right off the bat, we challenged it. It's TNC, admitted and requested that CRMC change it. So I agree with Carol to remove the entire cloud and make it totally clean, that something needs to be done in that regard. But as far as I'm concerned, we keep breaching the creek and we keep pushing CRMC to fix this thing. But yeah, let's get legal advice and see what the lawyers say.
Yeah, I think that would be wise to do that. We're going to need to communicate to him, the chain of events that happened. Is that email chain that you referred to, does that have everything in it that would explain that? If you just forwarded that to him?
Pretty much, and there's other information that's been written up to go with it to explain the email chain only talks about TNC and CRMC. It doesn't talk about that at the same time concurrently they were reviewing the beach permit. So there's plenty of information that's been collated, so to speak, that could go with that. However, maybe we in our answer to this enforcement threat, that we bring that up and say, what's the story? What's going on here? Because the last correspondence from CRMC, when we every time we approached them about this, we gave them more and more detailed information, saying the same thing over and over, but more detailed. And the last time, the response from CRMC was, oh, okay, we're going to have our people look this over and we'll get back to you. They still haven't gotten back to us.
Right, but none of that is in this letter. This letter seems to be putting everything on our doorstep.
Correct.
You know, it doesn't say anything about us getting back to them and waiting for them to get back. It makes it sound like they've requested many times and we've done nothing. You know,
And
that's
some
what
of
the
that,
letter
some of
sounds
that's correct, some of it isn't correct, unless somebody got a response on the gate response that we weren't aware of. Did anybody? Every month, we had it on the agenda, waiting for the response, and it never came, so that part is certainly inaccurate.
So why don't we try to shed some light on this thing? And do you want to pass that stuff along to Dick, those documents?
Is that who we want to use, or do we want to talk about who we would want to use for legal advice?
I think that this is a town issue, and I think that the town, you know, it's in the interest of the town to preserve the rights to its property.
Mhm.
I don't think we should, on
However-
our own, contract with an attorney separately.
Well, I think we could, if we wanted to.
I mean, the
Sometimes it's good to get a fresh look rather than,
well, I just think that the solicitor is already on retainer to the town, and,
He also has all the information from the beginning of agreements with DNC and all that negotiation from 25 years ago. So I think that might be.
He has the corporate information. To me, it makes no sense to hire somebody other than the town solicitor at this stage.
He may recommend later on to hire somebody. He has a couple times before recommended us going.
right, but in this case, to me, it's the town's rights that could potentially be taken away, that or are at risk. And he represents the town. for
so
legal matters.
how does the board go about, so do we request the town council authorize the solicitor to look into this? Or how does that
There
work?
is a process that can happen. We now have a new layer in there with the town administrator, so you have the ability to talk to the town administrator, explain what's going on, and he can authorize the solicitor to deal with this. I would suggest you copy every email that you have having to do with the TNC and CRMC matter, but also every email where you sent responses back to them so that he can see all of that, including all of the letters that they're now sending to you, even the corrective action one.
He meaning the town administrator.
Well, you're going to give all of that really to the solicitor. You're going to speak to the administrator and say, we have this problem. We'd like to go to the solicitor and get his blessing to go to the solicitor with all of this. Otherwise, you have to wait for another council meeting to get permission from the council in
Right,
order to
right.
go. Yeah.
So the process is that we clarify it with the town administrator, but we go ourselves, or we clarify it with the town administrator and the town administrator goes to the.
No, the administrator won't go on your behalf.
Okay.
You would work directly
Okay.
with the
All right.
So we
solicitor.
would pass that file, basically create a file of all the documents.
That would make
in order-
sense. Make a complete file of everything that you've got on this subject. And then, I mean, you certainly can take that with you when you go to the administrator saying, you know, this is the problem we have here, it's all copied. Can we have permission to go to the solicitor and ask him to pursue this on our behalf?
Okay, we should probably have a motion for that.
I think you started with authorizing him to write a letter to CRMC,
Yeah.
but did you finish that? I don't recall.
We did.
You did, okay.
That part's still gonna happen,
still
right?
gonna
Because we
happen,
need to
yeah.
get on record in response to this, where they're threatening, you know, periods of time and so forth. But I think we need another motion to,
So motion would be, so I might book right. So the motion would be that the beach commission would approach, would.
Town administrator?
You know,
Seek legal advice from the town
seek-
solicitor?
Would seek legal advice from the town solicitor to resolve the problem of the changing of the land evidence records.
Is he here every day?
Administrator? Yes.
Donnie, if you want, I can go in with you to talk to him,
Sure.
to the administrator.
Sure, if you'd like.
And go tomorrow if you want.
Okay, all right, check the schedule.
Whatever's, yeah.
Check his schedule, whatever, you know,
Well, I think we can just drop in.
For the most part, unless he's got a pre-scheduled meeting,
okay,
you're all good.
okay.
So you have a motion that was made, but I didn't hear any second.
So
I'll second that.
Joe seconds?
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry. Motion made and seconded for the Beach Commission to approach the town administrator to request the involvement of the town solicitor in the issue related to the land evidence record recordings. All in favor?
Michael Fogarelli, aye.
Don Maderis, aye.
Joe Mayado, aye. So we have that Donnie's authorized to respond, and we have that we're going to approach the town administrator for legal assistance. Phew, I thought this was going to be a quick and easy one. Do we have anything else? And Cindy, can you, for the agenda for next time, other than the routine things like communications and stuff, can you make sure that anything that we discussed at this meeting, that goes in the minutes, any follow-up to that is in the agenda as well for next meeting? Does anybody have anything else? Next meeting is December 8th. And also on that agenda, you can say that we're going to do the calendar for next year. Did Billy have anything to pass along or? No. Oh. That paper.
Did you guys want to move these meetings earlier?
No. I don't.
No, 7 o'clock's fine with me if that,
It gives you a chance to have supper. If that's okay.
Some of us get supper. Some of us get supper.
I usually didn't before. It's a new thing for me. All right, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:52.
second. Don Maderis, second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Michael Fogarelli, aye.
Don Maderis.